Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a little while since my last tutorial, but I am back in the new year and very excited to continue doing these tutorials. So today's look is Ana de Armas in the movie Deep Water. Now, she always looks beautiful when she has very little makeup, when she's heavily made up, and this particular look is one of my favorites because she looks very natural in a certain sense, but she brings those really beautiful, sultry eyes, and that's the star of this makeup look. So let's go ahead and get started, and then I will fix this crazy hair before the end of the tutorial. So I'm going to start with my foundation. This is Estee Lauder in the shade Desert Beige. This one is great for pale olive skin tones. Ana does not have olive skin tones. She's more of a cool girl, but always want to try to match your actual shade. And I'm just starting by applying this with my finger. This one does not have a pump to dispense it. Probably the only complaint I have about it, because otherwise it is a really beautiful foundation. And I want to have just enough for a nice coverage without getting too heavy. So like I said, she does look quite natural in a certain sense as far as movie makeup goes. I think she definitely looks like a real woman. Of course, one of the best of the best, but she looks like a woman who applied her own makeup and knows how. I just finish that up with the Beauty Blender, and I find that this takes away any little streaks that the brush might leave behind. Next, I'm going to grab the shaping stick in the Colored Light by Makeup by Mario. And this one has been a favorite of mine, so much so that we are at the very bottom of the stick, but I think it's gonna last maybe a couple more weeks. And I'm just going to contour the face. She has really a great bone structure, so I want to try to highlight my cheekbones to make them look like hers. Just go in with our nice flat brush, and this particular contour stick really melts into the skin nicely. I love the combination of this stick with the foundation. Other shaping sticks can kind of drag and look muddy, and I have not had that problem with this one. Alright, next I'm going to go in with my Rare Beauty Putty Blush. This one is in the color Worth. It is very well loved here, but it's a little more earthy in a pink tone, which I find very natural, and it goes on looking quite stark, but just like the foundation stick, it blends beautifully. Alright, so now we have just a beautiful hint of a blush, very natural, no blush blindness here, which is very much the look she has in this movie. And just to finish up the face, I want to go in with a touch of concealer just to really make that bone structure pop. So I'm going to grab my e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This one does not have the shade written on it, but I will post it in the description below. And like I said, I want to be quite gentle with this one, just enough to emphasize the cheekbones. And attempt to give myself a little more of a button nose. She has the cutest little nose there. Mine is many things, but not tiny. Alright, so let's talk about the brows. She has really gorgeous arched brows. Mine are naturally quite sparse, so I'm going to try to fill them in. Not a crazy amount, but enough to give that beautiful shape to them. So I have my Maybelline Brow Express. This one is in the shade Neutral Brown. And I'm going to start by creating a very light line all the way from that bottom corner of the brow up to where the arch starts to form. So hers are nice and straight, and then straight back down. And I like to do this one step at a time on each side. That way I have a better chance of making those brows match. I find that if I do one and then I go to the other, I often forget exactly what angle I was using. So this really helps me get the correct shape. So now I'll just start my line upwards. And again, I'm going very light for this step. Otherwise, it can look like your brows were drawn on with a Sharpie, which is not the look that I'm going for. All right, so now another line at the same angle as this bottom one. I'm going to stop right where I want that arch to be. Now we can start moving down into the tail end of the brow. And then just very lightly filling those brows in. And I think that's about as bold as I want to go with the brows. If you are blessed with naturally full brows, go ahead and play that up. For those of us who do not have full brows, I tend to recommend that less is more. You just don't want to look like, again, they're painted on. Alright, so now let's move on to the eyes, which, as I said, are the star of this look. And she wears different eye makeup throughout the movie, but my favorite of these looks is the heavier eye. It's a smoky eye, not over the top, still fairly bare-eyed and natural, but just enough to really make those eyes pop, emphasizing that natural almond cat eye. So I'm going to bring out my trusty Too Faced Better Than Chocolate palette. And this one just has some lovely nudes and some other colors in there we're not going to use today. I'm going to start with the palest of these nudes. This one is Buttercream, and just taking a nice fluffy brush, swipe this all over the eye. And right up into that crease. Alright, so next I'm going to go nice and dark with this color Brownie Points. I'm switching to a much smaller brush, nice and dense so that that color stays where I want it to stay. And just dabbing a bit onto the end of the brush here. I'm going to start with a little line, like you would put a cat eye if you were using eyeliner. And just connect that into a V shape right into our crease. And now switching back to that fluffy brush and giving this a nice blend. We want to keep the color generally where we placed it, but give it that nice gradient. So I'm pulling that color right back into the lash line rather than pulling it out, which will smudge it all over the rest of the face. Just adding a little more color here, making sure everything matches and is even. Alright, so now that our shadow is in place, let's move on to eyeliner. I'm going to be using the L'Oreal Voluminous Smoldering Eyeliner Pencil. It's a nice, big, chunky crayon. And I'm going to concentrate most of this on the outer corner of my eye. That way it will mimic more of that upturned, cat-like, almond-shaped eye, just because mine naturally go down in the corner. Depending on your eye shape, you might need to concentrate more in a different area. Starting to give the suggestion of a more upturned eye. I do want to place some in the inner corner, keeping that line very thin, and then a bit under the eyes. And I'm just going for the outer corner of the bottom lash line. As you can see, it's not smooth right now. That's no problem. The whole point of this is to create a smokier line. So what we want to do is grab a nice, thin, dense angled brush. This one's my favorite. If you've watched my channel before, you know it's from Bare Minerals, and it's about 15 years old, still in great shape, but I do not know if they sell this particular one anymore. So I'm going to hold that angled brush right parallel with my lash line, and I'm just gently sweeping this color across the lash line. As we get to the corner, pulling that liner together to create a nice little point. It's not a full-on cat eye though, more like the suggestion of one. And now you can see it is a smooth but still smoky eye, and much more almond and cat-like in shape than my natural eyes. So now let's go in with some mascara. I'm going to use the Lash Princess by Essence. This one is a waterproof. If she has eyelash extensions, they're very subtle. If you'd like to add a few very dainty ones to enhance the look, that's always great. But certainly staying away from the very bold fake eyelashes. Alright, eyes are done. Now let's move on to lips. I am going to add a little bit of lip liner because she has beautifully angled lips. Mine are a little, maybe softer around the edges. And the writing has worn off on this one, but again, I will figure out which one this is and post it in the description. I'm not trying to make them look fuller or anything, just going right along that natural edge. To emphasize the shape. And my natural lip color is quite similar to the color she's wearing in the movie, but I do want to add a little bit of lipstick and gloss. So I'm going to start with my Maybelline lipstick in the color Naked Dare. And this is a fairly pale shade, not too pink. And I'm using this almost as a base for the gloss that I'm going to put on top. And this one is another Maybelline. This is the Lifter Gloss in the color Reef. And this one is much pinker. And I find that putting that pink over the more beigey lipstick color makes it just a bit more natural and suits my skin better. Alright, let's get rid of this horrible hair and we will look at the completed look. Alright, this is the completed look. I do think we stayed very true to her makeup in the movie. You know, I am noticing, depending on what expression I have on my face, it does lean towards Angelina Jolie, which makes sense. This is very reminiscent of the way Angelina often wears her makeup. So I think that depending on how I pose, we are looking at two different celebrities here. But Anna has that very wide-eyed, sweet look, even though she's definitely not too sweet in this movie. But let me know what you think. If you liked this one, please let me know what you'd like to see next. I do have a couple that were requested months and months ago before I took my break, but feel free to remind me if you asked for something and I have not gotten to it. And I'm so glad to be back and looking forward to doing more of these in the new year, and a very happy 2026 to all of you. I will see you in the next tutorial.